Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and today we're talking about a very serious cloud computing blockchain called DeepCloud AI. And to explain this further, we have two very special guests. We have the CEO and we also have the CTO. So firstly, Max Rye, he is the CEO of this exciting blockchain. Welcome to the channel, Max.
Thank you, Brad.
And also we have Geeta Chauhan. Thank you very much, Geeta. She's on the audio today, and we're very privileged to have her. She is the Chief Technology Officer of this exciting project.
Thanks, Brad.
Not a problem. So obviously the intention here is to try and elicit some sort of objectivity and to provide a clear understanding of what exactly this DeepCloud AI project is all about. So who better to do that than the two experts in the field, the CEO and the CTO. The slogan for this company is stated as an AI-driven cloud computing infrastructure. So obviously it does require a lot of exploration. But firstly, let's explore the backgrounds of both participants today. Max, can you tell us, as the CEO, tell us about your background, particularly with regard to technology, with regard to business as well, and why you are well positioned to lead it?
Wonderful. Thank you, Brad. Well, I've been a CEO for more than 10 years. I've managed enterprise level cloud computing systems, implementation, and led teams, budgeting, marketing, basically been able to run a successful tech company for more than 10 years. So along the way, we have picked up some fairly large clients throughout California. And we're able to definitely make a big impact in this area.
Right, well, we appreciate that, and obviously you are very busy, no doubt, working around the clock to build this out. And Geeta, my understanding is you are one of the tech leaders of this project or this business, startup. So can you tell us a bit about your background as well, Geeta, and how you come to become the CTO?
Yeah, sure. So, Brad, I've been an engineering leader and a CTO for over 25 years now. My expertise is in building resilient, anti-fragile, large-scale distributed platforms. Platforms that can handle up to 1 billion plus users. And I've developed these products for both startups and Fortune 500s. So prior to starting with DeepCloud AI, I've built and launched 15 plus platforms and countless applications based around AI, deep learning, cloud computing, blockchain, software-defined networking, microservices, self-healing, and elastic scaling. So I have deep expertise in building and launching new platforms, and I'm very excited to be part of DeepCloud AI and be launching this platform for the market.
I see. Well, no doubt you have a lot of experience, and having done 15, that's quite impressive. Hopefully the 16th is the last one and you get a chance to really focus on this. Let's now explore, though, with both of you. And Geeta, if I could start with you with the technological question with regard to some of the problems technologically that you were trying to address. And then if we could move across to you, Max, for more the business aspects of what you're really trying to solve as pain points in this field.
Yeah, sure. So the two key areas that we are focusing on are decentralized compute for IoT and DApps. So both these applications have challenges today that are not solved by the current platforms that exist out there. So when you take a look at a IoT application, they all require edge computing, which is close to the actual edge devices. And especially as you're building out more intelligent applications with AI, you need the edge computing very close to the source. Right. So let's take a use case of a high-speed traffic chase happening where someone has abducted a child and they are just running off. So if the video cameras are going to stream all this video up to the central cloud and then any decision making happens, it will choke the entire bandwidth of the network bandwidth of the entire city while this high-speed chase is happening. If you had the compute very close to these video cameras where you can do the license plate detection and you can track it as it is jumping from red light to red light, you can give visibility to the law enforcement people, and they can quickly identify where the car is routing and nab them and hopefully get the child in good hands before anything bad happens. So for scenarios like this, where you require heavy computation close to the edge, the current central clouds don't solve this problem.
Right,
So
and
we
I think,
need,
sorry to interrupt,
yeah.
but we could just clarify that. I mean, you mentioned a key term there of not having access to heavy computation right at the edge. What a great way to explain that. And we will explore this in relation to real utility later, Geeta. But once again, you're showing that this has real use case and applications in the real world, and particularly with regard to having sophisticated computation on the blockchain. So thank you for that reference. And Max, if we could explore that further, you have a lot of business savvy and you've led many different startups in the past. So let's talk about why this is a serious problem we need to fix.
Well, first of all, the current systems haven't really addressed it very well yet. Microsoft Azure and AWS are great product. They're actually great products, but edge computing isn't something that they have really dialed in on, especially in this situation where decentralization is going to be actually great. It's going to have a major impact, especially since a lot of these edge computing, these devices are close to these IoT devices, right? So this will make it very, unless you're a very large enterprise who can afford to roll out edge computing systems, it's going to be very difficult. So this our product enables small, medium-sized, small governments, large governments to be able to do this in an affordable way.
Right. Okay. And obviously that supports the concept of public access, open source, and also public blockchains. So we've explored that. If we could now move on to the term democratization. It's a buzzword in your white paper and on your website. So can we talk about that for a moment with regard to what you're meaning when you're trying to say that you are a proponent of democratization?
Yes, so today, if you take a look at the current clouds, from Amazon, Google, Microsoft, etc., they own all the compute resources in the data centers that they manage and maintain. If you and I, like if we had spare compute resources on our home computers, or a small enterprise has excess capacity when the systems are not being used, they have no means of monetizing these compute resources today in a good manner. So by putting up these compute resources in a spot market like marketplace on our DeepCloud AI, anybody who has access spare compute resources, they will be able to make money off of it. And unlike in the traditional blockchains, like how Bitcoin, etc. started, where all these mining nodes are doing a lot of computation and are very energy intensive.
Yes.
So they're solving complex math problem, but nothing actually comes out of it other than, putting mining and adding a block. So that computation is not being put to good use. But with our platform, if someone is putting up their compute resources on our platform, it is going to do good work. An application developer will be able to execute something on your compute resource, so they benefit from it, and you're not wasting energy in this whole process. So not only you're able to make money from your access spare capacity, but you're also doing it in an environmentally friendly manner.
I see. Well put. Now, if we could talk about that in the context of market saturation, I wanted to move this across to you, Max. Now, obviously, cloud computing is the buzzword pretty much this year as 2018. We've seen many projects come forth, and we'll discuss this in detail later. But if we could just discuss this in the context of AI, because obviously that is literally inside your name. Let's talk about that in comparison to the current projects that are aligned with cloud computing and what sets you fundamentally apart from them.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that there is a lot of cloud computing projects out there. But at the same time, it's such a general area that not all of us are necessarily focusing on the same pain points. And Gollum, for example, like you had mentioned earlier, which is wonderful, but they're actually solving a totally different problem and so forth. iExec and so forth. A lot of these companies they're handling different areas, which is perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, a lot of us are going to be able to complement each other.
Right.
So I think that's not necessarily something that we're focused on as far as the competition wise. What we're focused on is developing a product from the ground up that has AI matching engines built into it, so we can make sure that the resources and where they need to go is matched up as close as possible, like what we were talking about earlier with edge computing.
Right.
And that processing happens as close as possible. So those are some of the issues that we're focused on to make sure that the next generation of IoT devices, because the vast majority of the next generation IoT devices are going to have some level of AI built into them.
Right.
And what that means is they're going to be pushing out a ton of data and a ton of processing, a lot more than what we have now. Mm-hmm. So those are the kind of solutions that we're putting together.
I see.
We want to, those are things that we want to solve with AI. And AI works at a few different layers, and Geeta can go into that as well a little bit later. But one of them is the matching engine.
Yes.
And another area is resource allocation, etc.
Right. And with that respect, also clearly you have core features built into this in your AI model. So Geeta, if we could talk about those for a moment. I have written down a few of them, but particularly with regard to your network, if we could start there, because you've not only built out a complex system, but you have networks built in them. One being your network of resources, network of users, and also your marketplace. So can we talk about that and how important the actual network is by design?
Yes, so the network itself, we have a decentralized network. You can think of it like how Skype used to be before Microsoft bought it. Mm-hmm. So it's like a peer-to-peer large-scale network where instead of, like in the case of Skype, you were using it for doing the video, audio calls, but here you're using it for sharing your compute resources and running applications on them.
Right.
So we have a agent process. So when someone comes to our platform, we have a two-sided marketplace. So at the one side, people are coming and sharing their compute resources, and on the other side, application developers are coming and putting their applications on those compute resources.
I see.
So when someone comes to our platform to share a compute resource, they get added to our broad network fabric. We download and we put a agent gets deployed on their computer, mm-hmm. and that monitors all the resources that are available on that machine, the health of the machine, etc., and sends this data back to our central fabric, where the AI matching engine then comes into play when an application developer requests a compute resource for deploying their application. So then the AI matching engine takes into account all these factors, the network bandwidth, how much compute that application needs, what is the location, etc. What are the other attributes of that application? Is it a web application? Is it an AI application? So based on the needs of the application, it will make the right allocation of resources.
Okay.
And then after the application has been running on the platform for some time, we can also do auto adjustment of the resources, so auto scaling mm-hmm. and adjustment, so that the application continues to run in a good manner on the platform.
I see. Well, clearly, you have built up this very robust network system. But what I also want to talk to you is about those key features. You alluded to one right then, which was your matching algorithm. So let's explore the three of them. The first being your matching engine, the second being your AT controller, and then I wanted to discuss with you the sharding and sidechains specifically and why these three are so important, Geeta. So let's start with the matching engine. Let's explore that, briefly as possible, but articulating why it matters.
Yeah, so matching engine is very important because we need to allocate resources that are right fit for that application, close to the source in the case of edge computing, mm-hmm. which are able to solve the needs of that particular application. So if the matching engine is really looking at all these attributes and doing the right assignment of the resources. And then we also have monitoring agents, which are monitoring the security side of things, which is very important for enterprise customers, which are also monitoring the network, what is the latencies and the behavior. If the behavior of that resource goes down a particular level, then the application gets assigned to another resource. So all those features are built into our matching engine and the monitoring fabric.
Right, and you've built that from the ground up as a team, is that right?
That's right. So we are building the solution right now, and our MVP will be coming out shortly.
Yes, and we'll talk about it in the roadmap. So what about with the AT controller as well? How important is that as one of the core features?
Yeah, so the controller is the one which is managing all the resources across the decentralized cloud. So it has visibility into what all worker nodes are connected into the system. It is managing all the master nodes and doing all the job allocation. When the AI engine requests that it needs to do a matching, so the actual scheduling and matching and deployment is done through this controller.
Okay, and that also feeds in, you were mentioning before about master nodes, that feeds in beautifully with your design with the sharding. So can we talk about that and how you've designed those ABC models of the sharding components with your master node?
Yeah, so master nodes play a dual role in our platform. So on the one side, they're managing all the compute resources that are local to that particular community or area. And then they also manage all the records that get written into the blockchain, the sidechain. This is for support for micropayments, which is very important for both IoT applications and for DApps, where they need a cost-effective solution when they're writing the transactions to the blockchain. So if the gas price is very high, then these transactions, micropayments are not viable for IoT applications where the volume will be very high and the actual transaction amount will be very low.
Right, well that makes a lot of sense. So thank you for explaining those features, and my apologies for those who aren't necessarily very technologically savvy, but certainly these are important. The reason why we talk about the tech is so that people understand this is the core business, is understanding that this tech is designed to be a longitudinal project that can actually have real use case. So if we move now into perhaps one more question for you, Geeta, before I allow Max to take the floor, and that's with regard to the tools and the techniques. They are important, so you've built in some AI and ML techniques and tools for your system. Can you tell us a bit about them and what they are and why they matter?
Yeah, so some of the techniques that we are using, so we are using a combination of traditional feature engineering solutions in machine learning, so where we are starting with all these features around the network bandwidth, the latency, the compute resources, etc. So that's one aspect. And then we are also combining that with deep learning, which is an emerging field where you don't need to do feature engineering from ground up, and it learns on the basis of the data.
Right.
So we are doing a lot of simulations to generate the data initially, and then based on the data that we are collecting from our network, we are using models which are, like RNN and CNN models, combinations of those on deep learning side, to be able to do better prediction about the actual resources. So longer term, we plan to move all the models to the deep learning approach, because feature engineering, if you rely on models that are heavy on feature engineering, they require a very constant upkeep and a lot of resources to be coming up with the right feature designs. And the benefit of migrating to deep learning is that you don't need to do this heavy feature engineering upfront.
I see. Well, thank you for explaining that. Now, Max, let's talk a bit more about the role of mining. I wanted to talk about it in terms of tech. Now, obviously, you are an ERC20 token initially. We're going to explore that. But also, by design, there's mining elements. Can you tell us about why you have enabled that facility and what's the benefit for the user?
To be honest with you, I'm going to let Geeta answer this one as well, since she's discussing this.
Go for it. So, Geeta, talking about mining, obviously, that you were talking about before about how we can benefit. Mining provides that. But tell us exactly how.
Yeah, so the mining here is for writing the blockchain records on the side chains and how the master nodes are managing the integration between the side chains and the main nodes. So that's where mining is coming into picture. It is a good way of incentivizing the the participants in the network. So that's the other reason why we have mining on the platform.
Sure. Well, let's move now across and let you talk for a bit, Max. And obviously, you are very well versed in the industry itself. Business is your background. Let's talk about that in the context of cloud computing. What's the industry like? Paint us a picture of that, and how important is it really to change the game in terms of moving from a centralized model to a decentralized?
Well, I'm going to be really honest with you. Cloud computing, the way it is today, if you're trying to overlap existing competition with AWS and Azure, it's going to be very difficult. These are behemoths. These guys are massive. So whether it's decentralized or not, it's going to be very difficult, especially as some of these major companies start rolling out blockchain solutions.
Right.
So our focus is really that's one of the reasons why we spend so much time looking at pain points and areas that we believe that we can fit in, the little gaps that we can fit in to solve real world situations and problems and so forth, and not try to go head on against something.
Right, so you're not trying to overthrow the old system, you're actually trying to utilize it and perhaps learn from it. But let's talk about now in terms of economic value. In the white paper it explains that the industry itself of cloud computing is potentially going to be 6 times what it's expected to be currently now by 2020. So we're talking of a huge amount of money in that industry. Can you tell us a bit about just how valuable it is?
Sure. It's massive. The market's massive. With IoT devices alone, every single convenience store in the world, every store in the world, there are going to be smart shelves. There are going to be, like we talked about, cameras with AI, facial recognition. I know a lot of great blockchain projects that are working with that as well. Those alone are going to be multi-billion-dollar industry. Then you have DApps as well that are going to be requiring some of the same services. So there's the market is massive.
Right.
That's just the IoT. We have lately I was talking to some trucking companies, some transportation companies. There's we have warehouses, we have supply chains. Brad, it just goes on and on.
It really does. We know that. Sorry, go ahead.
And what's really interesting, what's interesting is the traditional cloud computing is really transitioning into those areas because the edge computing is becoming more of a requirement, especially because a lot of the AI is getting built into the IoT devices.
I see. And obviously one of the core features is your AI for your own design in comparison to others, as we've mentioned, that are doing something more synergistically. Now with your DApps, if we could talk about that, Max, as well, because clearly what you're doing is you're trying to be a platform, you are a platform, and you're going to have DApps append to your blockchain design. So what can you tell us about what's in the pipeline in terms of DApps, or even now in terms of what's planned?
Okay, that's actually a great question. We just had a discussion today, and actually was worked on the MVP a little bit today. And Geeta went over some of the plans with me earlier. Geeta, would you like to jump in and explain the DApp side?
Yes, so Brad, on the DApp front, one of the areas that we are focusing on is providing good tools and pre-built components on the application marketplace. So that's a big gap area in the industry today. Very difficult to find reusable components if you are a DApp developer. If you take a look at iPhone or Android apps today, there's a very active marketplace for those, but such marketplaces don't exist for the DApp application developers. So there, with our application marketplace, where we would pre-validate the components, we'll make it very easy, lot easier for the DApp developers to build their applications.
Okay.
And along with the community and the developer ecosystem, we will really, enable easy rollout of these applications.
And that's fantastic, because currently, if you look around in the blockchain space, you don't see a lot of these kind of provisions. You certainly don't see a platform for tools to build out new DApps. So not only are you a DApp platform,
exactly,
but tools for
DApps. Being in business and being in the enterprise area, I've learned that you have to really make it as easy as possible for these dApps to join on board. You have to give them these pre-validated tools and so forth, and make it where they can focus more on their project, go into our marketplace, take whatever they need, whatever they can use, and be able to roll out their project as fast as possible.
Absolutely. So clearly there's two things we're talking about here. And Geeta, if we could allude to this further. So you've got DApp tools, a DApp toolbox you're building for dApps, but can we also now talk about dApps themselves? Because no doubt in the boardroom, in your your project, you talk about some of the projects that could actually append into your platform. Have you given any forethought into that yet, or are we still at that nascent stage of doing your own MVP? And not really going ahead yet with how different dApps could actually append onto the system?
Yeah, so we're actually looking at both, so because just having a platform without applications is never a good thing. So if you take a look at in the history, take a look at Microsoft. Microsoft became successful with their operating system only after the applications that were released on them.
Right.
So, when the Excel and the Word came out, that's where the adoption of the personal computer happened. Same thing if you take a look at iPhone. When they launched, it was the application marketplace which really made iPhone a real success.
Exactly.
So we are looking at, the DApp and IoT applications. We will be releasing few starter applications along with our platform itself. And we are doing partnerships with many companies across the board to find the right match to help test out our platform as well as launch the applications on the marketplace. Max can talk more about the partnerships.
Sure. Well, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that as well, Geeta, because I certainly will be digging deep with Max about trying to find out as much as I can about those partnerships. Now, if we could talk briefly about use case as well. We had mentioned it previously, but I wanted to try and get some names of companies perhaps that can align in the use case, but also in relation to examples specifically in industries of how you can be applied.
So on the use cases, like we were talking about earlier on the video use case for the law enforcement, so this could be a use case for the smart cities.
Okay.
Max has been talking about use cases with the retail industry where, when you're monitoring all the videos on the retail stores, you can be using those. In the supply chain space, if you're building a DApp for tracking all your, how your shipping container is traveling from one location to the other,
right,
and you want to track, what, like if you're passing, like if you are shipping meat, it needs to be at a certain temperature, so you want to track, whether the health of the goods was correct. You can build a DApp on our platform and do all that monitoring. So there's a wide range of use cases. We will start rolling out more details about this on our website soon. But we expect a wide set of use cases across multiple industries.
Right. Well, from the sound of it, Geeta, it sounds like it's quite infinite, the potential for use case and application. If we could now move across, Max, to your partners, it's a perfect segue, I think, to explore what you know, and only the CEO really knows the depths of strategic partnerships planned ahead. How excited are you about the current partnerships, and what have you got planned in the pipeline, mate?
We have some. Listen, as you guys probably know, I can't release all the names right now. It has to be strategically released out, but I'm very excited. We have some really big hitters out there in the industry that I'm working very closely with right now, and we're hoping to release some of these names strategically with marketing. We just barely started rolling out this our private sale just lately and so forth.
Sure.
And from what I'm told, you have to kind of let it out a little at a time and so forth.
Well, it certainly is the nature of the game in terms of trying to respect the nature, I suppose, the decentralized model that is, particularly in the social media space. We respect that you'll need to do that in intervals, and I certainly don't want to hype your project. I think that can be actually quite bad for any good quality project. But let me say this, is that you mentioned that you're going to be hitting, you used the term hitting. Let's talk about hitters. You have partnered with him. If people aren't familiar, Hitters is the CEO of Nebulous. How important has that partnership been?
Fantastic. He's instrumental in giving us some guidance, introducing us to quite a few influential people in this space, and potentially opening up the Chinese marketplace, as he's a major influence in China.
Sure. I think also with regard to that, what I will say is that, for those who don't know, Geeta Chauhan is an advisor for this exciting project, and is certainly part of the advisory role is to ensure the viability of this company. And part of his role would no doubt be providing as many connections as he can. So it's entirely plausible and fine, I think, that you mentioned that. Now, if we could talk about your token itself, never a dull moment when we do discuss tokenomics. You mentioned before you're in the private sale round now. But let's explore the fundamentals first. You are, as I understand, moving out as an ERC20 token first, and then graduating to your own native token. So as what you call a transitional process. So let's talk about the current status of your token, the Deep token.
Sure. Or we are selling about 40% of the tokens. They are, I think, the maximum we're doing. Do you want to know more about our private sale and so forth?
Yeah, well, sorry, I didn't lead this very well. So if we could talk firstly, we'll just do that first. We'll go through from your private sales, pre-sale, your crowd sale intentions. My understanding is that 25% bonuses for those in the private sale. Is that correct?
That's a maximum. And this is listen, I'm a businessman. I don't give away anything if I don't have to. So if some of the VCs can give me the most value, really help us out with our connections, business side, marketing, whatever it is that these guys offer, that they'll get the highest amount. But I can tell you that not everybody gets that. It's based off of just how valuable they are to our project. So it's up to 25%, and in the pre-sale, it's up to 10%.
Okay, and what's interesting is you're referring to value add. We're not hearing enough of that, quite simply, Max, in this space. So it's nice to hear a CEO say we are willing to explore and determine the value on a case-by-case basis, and not simply just issue by default in these rounds. So thanks for your transparency. I really do appreciate that. Now, obviously, the crowd sale is also something coming up in the future through your ICO phase. When are these dates planned? Do you know them yet?
We don't know the dates yet for the public sale. I think it'll be sometime late in July, is what we have planned.
Right. Okay. Now, if we can move across now to some of the facts of the token itself. Clearly, as I mentioned before, it's the ticker is Deep as the Deep token. But more importantly, I want to discuss with you the number of tokens and the allocation structure itself. So you have 200 million tokens allocated currently pre-burn. Why did you have so many?
Well, we actually thought that was the perfect amount. We went back and forth. We thought 200 million is actually a really good amount of tokens. It's not too much. It's not like a billion, and it's not 100. A few hundred, or even, not a billion or so forth. So we thought that'd be the right number, and we can start off at that point.
Right. And in terms of the way you've allocated the token itself, I noticed that some of the key features where you did focus a lot on bootstrapping and also development, which was a boon, I think, but you did allocate 5% to marketing in the token allocation model. So is the reason why you allocated so few few tokens to that?
Well, because I believe a lot of the onboarding or the bootstrapping is going to be a part of that as well. So it's gonna definitely be a big part of getting a lot of our enterprise clients on board.
Okay.
So the 5% of it is going to be some of the marketing, but that's not our entire plan.
Okay.
Bootstrapping is going to be a big part of it.
Right. So obviously, and just one more thing, uncomfortable question, obviously, to answer, because no one really wants to get into the deep stuff, but hard caps and lockups, we do need to talk about that for those who have the...
Sure. I'm actually okay. I'm happy to talk about that.
Okay.
So with the private sale, it's 3 months from the time of the exchange. The bonus is locked up, and that goes for the pre-sale as well.
Right. And what are we talking about in terms of numbers for the hard cap? My understanding is it's 15 mil. Is that right? For the overall hard cap.
The hard cap, yeah. The hard cap is 15 mil.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Max, can you tell us why you decided to have a hard cap of 15 mil? What was the reason behind it?
Brad, that's a really good question. A lot of people asked us why for a project this size, because this is a pretty big project. This is an amazing project. Why we didn't go for something much higher, like 30 or 40 million or so forth, because we really do believe this has got so much potential. And really what I believe, especially in business, is if you take the money that you need to build a project out, not what you think it's worth, but what you need to build it out, then you don't have to worry. Down the line, the value is going to go up like crazy. So you got to focus on how much you think it'll cost you to build it out.
I see. Now, given the unique structures that we've seen on the blockchain, and particularly with regard to influence itself, it's ironic I'm even mentioning this, but clearly you've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. So in that respect, no doubt the pump and dump model is at the forefront of most CEOs' minds. What measures have you put in place to try and prevent that from happening as much as possible?
Well, to be honest, we just want to focus on continuously releasing updates to our community, giving them letting them know which partnerships we have, being fairly transparent as far as our product and where our product is going. Right. So they can be involved, and we really want to have a good relationship with our community. I believe that's a big part of it. In creating that trust there, so they know that this is something that we're working on long term.
I see. And have you got any media firms that you're currently working with or planning to help facilitate that process as you become known in this space as a project?
Yes, luckily we've been in the tech field for quite some time, so we have built up quite a few connections in this industry. So we will have quite a few people in this area that'll help us out and promote us and kind of get our tech out there.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good to know, because obviously it's an imperative for any good tech to couple with other strategies. If we could talk now about your revenue. You are, I would imagine, a money man as well. What's your revenue plan? How are you going to actually build this out so it's of value to your company?
Sure. Well, I'm sure you've read in our white paper, initially our core product is going to be free. I know it sounds crazy, but we believe that we need adoption. We need adoption very fast. Yes. So we are going to have premium features. There's going to be a lot of extras and so forth that people will be able to purchase. We've seen in industry how with other products that works really well. There's a lot of programs and software stuff that's out there that the base model is usually free. You have antivirus programs, for example, that are free and so forth. And if you want premium features, you're going to have to pay for it. Right. And so we like that model. We believe that that's going to be the best way to expedite adoption. And then and from that, we can build trust. You build the trust with your clients and with people out there, and they're more likely to purchase your premium features. I see.
Well answered, I think, as well. We could use the analogy, of Netflix, for example, or any of these, core and popular modes of technology or even services that are provided, in that they often provide a platform that's free first, and then it moves on into something more. We even see that on YouTube, in fact. So sure. If we could now talk about your roadmap, there's some exciting things you've already done in May. If we could move across from May right through to the end of the year, what's planned, and what are the key plans in terms of the key aspects of what you want to achieve?
Sure. Geeta, do you want to discuss the MVP development?
So Geeta, can you hear us? We might have lost Geeta, I think, along the way. I know that she's online, but perhaps she can't. Oh, she's there?
I'm still here.
Still there?
Yeah, so we are currently working on our MVP. So the actual development has started full force. We completed the design of it last month. Our first live test traffic would start, towards end of July in early August, where we will start inviting people outside the company to start coming and testing on our platform. And then in Q3, we are planning to have more details rolled out, a full-fledged platform where we have all our agile development practices with the full CI/CD pipeline, and something that I'm quite passionate about, doing canary deployments and using AI itself for our development processes. So we'll start rolling some of that out in Q3. And by Q4, our DeepCloud Fabric will be ready for handling web applications effectively on our platform. So if anybody wanted to run a web application, they'll be able to do that on a Fabric. And then after that, as we move into Q1 of 2019, that's where we will start launching some of the live DApps on our platform with and also AI at the edge for IoT applications and live testing.
I see. There's a lot happening in that period of time, Geeta. Can I ask you, how are you going with the time sequencing? Are you on track?
So let me jump in and say you're right. There's a lot going on. We're fitting in quite a bit, and we've had to ramp up. We went up from several engineers to now where we have 22 full-time engineers in-house that are working around the clock. So we're definitely focused on trying to stay on track, and so far I think everything's going pretty much in line with what we're trying to accomplish.
That's quite impressive, because when I looked at your team, and that was the excuse me, that was the next topic of conversation. You had 11 core. You do have 11 core team members on your advertised on your website. So you have 22 in your double that already currently as engineers working, and that's pre-ICO. That's currently before you even have a lot of capital to really build out this further. So already you have a substantial team. If we could talk about that now in terms of the key skills that team does bring to the table, into the DeepCloud AI table, what would they be if you could articulate them? Clearly one of them is engineering.
So, on the engineering software development side, you need people in multiple areas. So one is on the blockchain side. So, you need expertise in blockchain. Then expertise on building cloud fabrics. And expertise in networking for peer-to-peer mesh networking side, and expertise in security, because we are targeting enterprise customers with our offering, so we need a real secure sandbox solution for them. And then a very good user interface for the adoption, so that the platform is really easy to use and intuitive. So that's just on the engineering side. And besides that, we need to have deep partnerships, which Max is working on. Then as we get, more with our partners, we need a services team which will work with the partners to build out the actual applications.
I see.
So this will
and let me just add. Along with that, having a great Miro, for example, having a great chief marketing officer and the product development team. So it's very important for us to sculpt these products so they fit in with these enterprises really well. So being able to develop and put together different products and so forth that we have in mind that'll be able to be adaptable.
Right. So, excuse me, you're tackling it from all fronts clearly in the way you're approaching this, not just from the technological standpoint, but also the other facets that you need to build out a very holistic and successful startup. Now, in that context, obviously, I wanted to ask you this, Max. You mentioned before, you alluded to Azure. That's linked back to Microsoft. Have you had any conversations in your leading role with traditional stakeholders whereby they may be attracted to align in some way? We're talking Microsoft, we're talking IBMs. Have you had any conversations with anyone like that?
Well, just let you know, a lot of these corporations, they're working on their own solutions as well.
They are.
So we're not going to get very far trying to either partner with them or get very deep with these guys. Right. So what we can do is concentrate on these little pain points that we talked about and start building out solutions in these areas.
So in that respect, is early entry an imperative in this game?
Sure, absolutely. Trying to get in early and trying to build that trust with these enterprises is very, very important.
Okay. Now, if we could talk briefly, if I could discuss it with you, Geeta. Now, competitors is something that Max mentioned is not so much of a focus, because there's obviously synergies between different like projects in the cloud computing domain. But certainly there are some that do overlap. So can you tell us a bit about some that may, and why, again, you really are leading the way or plan to?
Yes, so some of the cloud, decentralized cloud computing platforms include projects like Golem, iExec, Sonam, HyperNet. So all these projects, if you dive deeper into these projects, they're all targeting different market segments. So Golem, for example, they started off with focus on graphics rendering. That's the only use case they support at present. They talk about supporting machine learning as the next use case, but they're still building out that platform. iExec is building a general purpose cloud, so they have not selected a focus area like us. We are focusing on IoT and DApps, so
Right.
very targeted market segment. Sonam again is doing a general purpose cloud, and they do have plans of building a marketplace down the road, but they have not released anything on that yet. In fact, their MVP just came out almost a year after they got their initial funding.
I see. So clearly, we could go on.
They're all wonderful. They're all wonderful companies. I just want to jump in. They're all wonderful companies, and they're all important in this ecosystem.
Yes.
And we're all there's so much space, as we talked about how many billions of dollars this industry is. There's plenty of space for us and for several more high quality projects.
Right, and I think that's the key point, is the high quality. That's what we're looking for in this space as well, Max. So I did want to ask about some criticisms I have with regard to having read through your charts and your white paper. One of them is that you don't offer, there's no fog computation provisions in your design in comparison to some others. So Geeta, can we talk about that? Is that a concern at all that you don't have that element in your structure?
Yeah, so with our decentralized compute cloud, the compute is going to be very close to the edge sources. So we don't think that you need the compute fully 100% on the edge devices, which is what fog computing is targeting. So with our model, as Max was explaining earlier, so today, if a company wants to roll out edge computing and wants to put AI logic on those, they need very deep pockets to be able to deploy such a rollout, such a solution. So heavy investment is needed up front. Not many enterprises, or even small and medium enterprises, can do that. Even cities and governments have tough time being able to roll out such solutions.
I see.
So by partnering with us, tapping into our decentralized cloud, they don't have to worry about this expensive infrastructure rollout by themselves, so they can rely on the cloud computing resources, the decentralized resources from us, and focus on their core business logic and building the application. So I think with that, we provide a good mix of the solution. You don't really need fog computing per se, but it's close to the source on the edge, and it's solving the needs for the AI at the edge use cases.
I see. I appreciate that answer. And I want to ask you also, Geeta, with regard to your code in the GitHub. Currently, is it true that you're closed source? It's not open to the public currently. Is that right?
That's right. So our code is not yet released on the public GitHub yet. We will start releasing components of it soon. So you should start seeing some activity on our GitHub soon.
So in terms of that,
there will be there's going to be some activity. We're going to be able to release some on the GitHub, our public side of it, but we're going to keep some of it private.
I see. Well, obviously there's a lot to be said about this, but I can't talk forever. Is there anything that you both wanted to say as a final statement? Firstly, if we start with you, Max, is there anything you'd like to say that perhaps we may not have covered, or you just want to address to the community?
Well, we've had a lot of great support so far, a lot more at this stage than I had imagined. I know from the crypto community that great projects the community really rallies around, and I believe that that's what we are. I believe we're building something that's really amazing, and I'm really thankful for the support that we're getting so far.
Thank you very much for your time today. I do appreciate how busy you are. And Geeta, what about you? With all your technological savvy, what would you like to say to the audience, to the people who've been listening all this time about DeepCloud AI?
Yeah, so I'd like to say that I'm very excited to be part of DeepCloud AI and rolling out a great platform to the community, and would love to work with the developers for making it very easy for them to build decentralized applications. So I'm a developer at heart myself. I understand the pain points of developers, and I would like to solve their needs and truly democratize cloud computing for the broader market.
Well, thank you very much to both of you. Today we listened to the CEO, Max Rye, and also the CTO, Geeta Chauhan, about all the different facets. We've heard from the business side, we've heard from the technological side in detail, and essentially what we're finding out is that DeepCloud AI is all about trying to be AI-driven and bring that right to the forefront of cloud computing for not just now, but well into the future. So on behalf of all of us who've wanted to know more about this exciting project, thank you very much. We wish you very much.
Brad.
We wish you all the very best, and hopefully we can catch up for updates in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Brad.
You're very welcome. Thank you.